Mm. All right, this is the Practicing Happy podcast number 5, and today we are talking about I shouldn't have to, which is a very potent meme that stands in the way of people doing things that take care of them in their lives. So let's explore it for a moment. I am joined by Dan,
Hello.
Dennis.
Good evening.
Ooh, that was good.
That was really nice.
And nice. So yeah, let's hop right into it. So I shouldn't have to it's sort of a subspecies of the process of inventing these hypothetical worlds and comparing the real world to them and being thoroughly dissatisfied.
You know, I shouldn't have to be on this fucking podcast right now is what I shouldn't.
Right? Exactly. You should just be out exulting.
Yep.
Pure joy of your experience of the world. All times. The heck are you doing here, like talking about working towards being happy? Right? It's ridiculous. But I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you lay it out like that, right? But I've had that conversation before where I've talked to somebody, they were having a bad time, right? And I'm listening. I'm like, okay, do you want to hear what I think about that? It's like, yeah, that's why I'm talking to you. And which is an important question to ask because very often people really don't, and you can save everybody a lot of embarrassment and trouble. But this person was interested to hear what I had to say. And so I was like, these are the things that I think you could look at undertaking to move things in a more positive direction, right? Like these are some practices that you might give a shot to. These are some things you might want to learn about, right? And she was like, that kind of sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, it is a lot of work, right? But I mean, you can continue putting a lot of effort into being miserable, which is what you're doing now, or you can put a lot of effort into being happy.
Isn't it interesting that upkeep of a lot of things requires work, right? Like if you want to maintain a healthy body, you have to work at that. If you want to feel at your best, sometimes you need to maintain a healthy diet, and that requires effort to prepare food and do things. But nobody tends to look at mental health that way or happiness that way as something that we need to keep into or turn our attention to.
You need to set up sort of behavioral patterns that take care of you. You need to set up mental structures that take care of you. You need to set up beliefs that take care of you, right? Like your understanding of the world needs to actually be somewhat in tune with how the world works. And all of that requires effort. But, the response that I got that day was like, yeah, isn't there just like, can't I just be happy? And it's like, well, no, it doesn't really work that way. You can practice it being miserable. You can practice it being happy. You're going to put some effort in either way. You may as well put the effort in towards being happy. And it's just like, nah, I think I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing then. Okay. You're a human being. You get to make your choices in life. That's fine. Not the choice I would make.
So what shouldn't we have to do, Brian? What's that story look like?
My common experience of it has been that, people do have the expectation that you should just get to be happy, right?
Right.
That happiness should just be sort of a default given thing, right? Like I should just be happy. And if I'm not happy, then the world is in some sort of disarray and it's wrong and it's bad and I'm just going to sit here resisting it. It's like, okay, well, that's actually not going to change the world. Like being upset doesn't change the world, which is, a lesson that a tremendous number of people could stand to learn, I imagine. Certainly change a lot of our political discourse. But just being mad doesn't change the world, right? You actually have to take active steps to change your little corner of the world. Right? And like I personally don't think I should have to eat. I think that's nonsense.
I agree with you there.
Right? Like it's bothersome, right? And I don't know. I don't have the relationship to food that a lot of people have, right? So I'm fueling up. It's not a huge concern for me. I enjoy good food. I don't think that the pleasure is in any way proportional to the effort required. So, I constantly find myself just having that thought, just why do I have to do this, right? But there's no amount of me believing I shouldn't have to do this that makes me have to do it any less, right? It's the same way with happiness. One of the things that I encounter, right, working as a tutor is I have students who, I tell them, you're doing your homework and you're getting bad grades on tests, right? That means you got to do more. The homework is the bare minimum, right? Like if you have an aptitude for this, doing all of the homework will prepare you for the test. If this is not your jam for whatever reason, if this isn't playing into your cognitive strengths, then you got to do a lot of extra work. We need to figure out what that is. And especially young people get into this sort of, oh, well, I shouldn't have to do all this. And it's like, well, this doesn't change anything about the universe. The universe actually doesn't care what you think about how it should or should not be. So we need to adapt ourselves to it because it's not going to do the reverse for us.
Yeah, I'm falling in line with that a little bit. I can't help but think that there are some truisms, though, to I shouldn't have to do that, like, especially in the middle of tax season. I just think I shouldn't have to do that. Shouldn't have to do any of that.
Yeah, but, at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything, right?
You're right. At the end of the day, if I don't take care of it,
I shouldn't have to file my taxes. The IRS already has all that information, which we know because if I mess it up, they're going to tell me about it.
Right?
Yeah,
Right.
What is it? The Planet Money just did a thing on this recently about how all the tax companies have actually fought to keep us from being able to have simple file from the government. It's like, thanks.
In much of Western Europe, the government just sends you a refund check and just says, this is what we think we owe you. If you feel any different, you're welcome to file. But that's been blocked here, right? But me being upset about the fact that it's been blocked doesn't actually change the fact that it's been blocked, right? I can.
You can go out in the world and try to do something about it.
Yeah, I can actually act in the world to try to do something about it, right? But that's a different thing from just not participating in the thing I think I should.
And that requires work.
And it does require work, right?
Back.
But, as a issue of practice, it does come up a tremendous amount, right? And it comes up in large part when people get the information that something needs to change in their life, right? They've run up against it enough. They've been miserable enough, or they've had they've experienced enough trauma that they're like, whoa, this is not working anymore. And then they start casting them out, and they want to find some way to make a change in their life, right? And then they get a book or they go to a talk or whatnot, and they get the information, and they're like, I understand this, right? And part of the information is, and now you need to practice. And they go, isn't reading the book enough?
Oh no, because I get that. Like every time I read your stuff, like I'm immediately going like, oh yeah, I feel so much better. Now I'm done. And it's like, no, you need to constantly reiterate and keep looking at it.
Mm-hmm. And you got to come back to it. You got to actually do the practices. You have to attend to things. And then, of course, there's the issue of that we keep talking about, like practicing with aliveness, right? You have to go up against the things that hurt, that make you miserable, that actually are contributing to you having a less than optimal experience of the world in sort of a controlled environment, and make changes to your experiences there. People don't generally want to do that, right? Even living in a monastic community, it was really interesting to see how many people would actually change almost everything about their life, but didn't want to change their habits. So it's like, sure, I'll sell all my possessions and move into the mountains, but I don't want to change the way that I think about this thing. No, I shouldn't have to do that. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, but the habits are the hardest part, right? Because right now I'm running again and I don't feel good and I don't want to run tonight, but I'm still going to go out and do it. But I'm still like, oh, hey, I'll go to Taco Bell. That'll be great. Because I'm like, it's something I always do and I really love it. And it's like, no, like just because I love it doesn't mean that's actually good. And that's the whole thought. It's like, I shouldn't have to stop eating fast food as long as I'm working out and exercising. I shouldn't have to stop drinking Mountain Dew. Be like, no, that's like literally just a gallon of sugar you just drank. Like you can't just keep doing that all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's
you trick yourself.
You know, those shoulds are the ones that undo the results, right? It's like, yeah, you went and you ran, and that's great. And the sugar actually, the metabolic effects of that are so severe that you just completely undid it. You're actually still in the hole. You're just a little less in the hole. But things are still trending in the wrong direction. It's like, I shouldn't have to. And it's like, actually, you do. And a lot of that can stem from sort of incomplete information, right? We don't know how the world works in some domain. And when we're entering into a new space, it's incredible how much information can arise about how things should be when we really don't know anything. Does that land anywhere for anybody?
So,
did I just say words that made any sense? Is what I'm saying.
Can you just repeat it real quick?
Yeah. So it's amazing how much information we can believe about what should and shouldn't be so when we're entering into a realm where we know that we know nothing. Right. So, of course, my favorite example of that is always meditation, right? Pretty much anybody who starts a meditation practice is certain that they're doing it wrong. Invariably. Just, I'm doing this all wrong. I was like, well, where'd you get the information about what it meant to do it right?
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty common one.
Well, this voice in my head was telling me I was doing it wrong while I was doing it, and I was feeling real uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, that means you're doing it right.
That's exactly how that's supposed to feel.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel profoundly uncomfortable and encounter all sorts of resistance. That means you're doing the right thing. Awesome, rad. If it feels great, that also means you're doing the right thing. Awesome, rad. It's really almost impossible to do wrong. But people believe it, right? And people believe that this isn't working, and they try something one time and they go, no, this is not for me. This is not for me, right? And it's really fascinating. It's a great place to sort of pay attention to where information is coming from in your mind. Because there's a lot of out and out nonsense floating around in every single one of our heads. And it's really believable when it's inside your own mind. That's all I got.
Well, I mean, I agree with that statement. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, it's really easy, like when you already have things set up in your brain that you've been doing for forever, to like be able to trick yourself into doing it again because it's so well ingrained. It's such a good groove in your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I that's my experience with video games because I grew up playing them, right? And I'm like, I as a sophisticated human being, should be able to strike a healthy balance with this, right? I should be able to just, play this thing a little bit and then go do another thing that's productive. No, that's not true. As far as I can tell, that's not true at all, right?
Yeah.
Right? And which is fine, because as long as you learn something from every failure, right, you're trending in the right direction. But that voice that's just like, no, I shouldn't have to do things this way, this other way. It's like, well, I actually don't, it's not like I've had 10 runs on my life and been able to look at how different outcomes work, right? For all I know, those structures are so deep that I'm not able to have like profitable, productive behaviors around them, right? Maybe. But I have a lot of beliefs that I can, and I ought to be able to, and that's meaningful in some sense. And this is really fascinating to me. Giving things up is never a popular recommendation, though, in general, right? I shouldn't have to stop doing this. I shouldn't have to stop doing that is a strong form of that meme.
Yeah.
there's an old story about George Fox and William Penn. You guys know William Penn?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super familiar.
The guy Pennsylvania is named after. He was a Quaker, and he was a English aristocrat, right? At a time when English gentlemen still wore swords. And William Penn, as an English gentleman, wore a sword, and he was kind of conflicted about it. And he went to George Fox, who was a prominent teacher, and asked him about it. And George Fox reportedly told him, just wear that sword for as long as you can. I think that's kind of the right attitude to have about giving stuff up. It lets you subvert all those shoulds, right? If the story is I shouldn't have to give this up,
yeah,
don't, but really pay attention to it and be ready for the moment when you go, this isn't actually a loss to give this up.
Yeah.
All right, because in that moment, it's done. You can set it down and have no regrets.
Yeah, as a guy who's given up smoking this year and for the most part drinking regularly, I'd say like there was definitely a long time before I was quit smoking that I was not ready to. It was like, oh, I shouldn't have to do that just yet. It could be in a few years. It could be this X, Y, and Z. And then finally a day came where I was just like, you know what? Like this is it. Like now's the crossroad. Gotta move on with my life without it. And I will smoke on occasion in social situations, which is like, for me, since I'm a new father, a social situation is like once every 3 months. So, but it's been nice to like let go of that habit as a regular thing. It's healthier for me in the long run.
Yeah, and being available to have the experience of being at a crossroads like that.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big part of practicing.
I think a lot of things that people don't. I think that's something that people take for granted too in the process of trying to become a happy person is that the really low valleys set you up for to notice that there are peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that when I started having anxiety problems and depression problems that like man, now I have these things and that that's a bad thing and that there's these stigmatisms involved and I'll never come out of that. And then really though it was like I couldn't see the forest for the trees because I feel like I didn't know there was a problem to begin with. And then I started looking at all the empty rooms in my life that like allowed me to cultivate such a strong like stress response to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look at all these things that you've been neglecting that are good for you. And I could have gone on for another 5-10 years not doing any of those things unless I'd finally reached a point, like a breaking point that showed me that all those things existed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's in some respects, you need to have that point in order to set yourself up for success in the future.
Mm-hmm. You know who talked about that, right?
No.
Jesus.
Not that guy again.
Or as the internet has recently dubbed him, Oily Josh, which is
where did this? So it's an amazing name.
Yeah. So Jesus Christ, right? Jesus is a form of Jeshua, which is where the English Joshua comes from, and Christ is from Christos, which is the Greek for anointed one, right? So like literally the person who's had oil rubbed on their head as part of a religious ceremony, right? The idea being that in the Hebrew religion, the Messiah was the anointed one of God, right? And so it was Saul, and then Saul fell out of favor, and then David became the anointed one, and he was, the great king of the Israelis. And so Christ gets associated with Jesus because of the messianic prophecy and whatnot. And so it's literally Oily Josh is what is how you would
like that.
how you would update that to modern English. What a humorous way to update that to modern English. But just a line that always sticks out to me from the Gospels is, I think it's from the Gospels. I don't know. It could be from the teachings of the Buddha. Who knows? But the doctor comes not to the healthy, but to the sick.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
So, until you have hit a deep enough trough, it can be really hard to be open to the information that things got to change in your life. Right.
Yeah.
And you have that eye-opening moment when you go, to bring it back. These shoulds don't really matter that much. Right. Maybe I shouldn't have to work at living a better life, but I'm going to anyway. Because the world as it is presented to me right now is pretty terrible. So I gotta have a different experience.
Yeah. I think, it does link in that way for sure.
And I think it always comes back to the same thing, right? With the ideal comes the actual kind of idea, right? That there is a world out there and it does exist. We hope, right? I hope you guys aren't just figments of my imagination, because that would be less interesting. And as we've established, that's the only thing I actually care about, right? And we can have a whole bunch of different experiences of that world, right? But we can also invent a whole bunch of worlds that don't exist.
Totally.
And those seem really relevant for whatever reason. That's a deep human experience, is being susceptible to this idea that if I can think of some world that is in some way better, then that world is relevant, right? It's like this deep optimism.
What's a good way to put that? Like, we get lost in the ideal, or
Yeah.
the ideal? Yeah, it's kind of.
That's the Aristotelian, right? Don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
Right. We should conceive of the perfect, right? I'm not super pessimistic, right? Like we should have a vision of a better world that we are building towards.
Sure.
We shouldn't let that allow us to lose sight of the world as it is, and most importantly, that which is good in the world as it is, right? We live in the best world that any humans have ever lived in, period. Right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Earth has never been a better place to be human than right now.
It's really easy to lose sight of that, though.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something that was in like the new Louis C.K. special, which I love. He talks about the fact that it's like, oh, there are people driving down the fucking street in a beat up car that has like a trash bag for a window, and yet they're still living their life. Like, they're not killing themselves. So it's like something must be good in life for them not to do it. It's like, yeah, it turns out even people who are miserable, like, they're not living a really shitty life.
Yeah.
Well, and there's only the loosest correlation between an abundance of stuff and an abundance of joy. Right?
That's what I was about to say, is I think that struggle and I don't know that happiness is correlated. Yeah, exactly how you said it. I just think that across all social contexts and dynamics, there's chances to be happy.
And most people are miserable, right?
Yeah.
Under the surface, that I'm just positing that. I would love to be wrong about that, but as far as I can tell, that's true. And I would hazard, and I don't have any data on this, but I would hazard that wealthy people are more miserable than poor people. Once you get over a certain threshold, right? Like if you're literally starving on a daily basis, yeah, that's going to have a huge detrimental impact, right?
Sure.
But there are a lot of people who are low status, but are living quality lives, right? They actually have well-adjusted attitudes and behaviors, and they're doing it, right? They're living a human life that's rich and meaningful. And there are a lot of people who have all sorts of material bounty and are leading very unfortunate lives.
Did you see a lot of that at the monastery?
I saw a little bit of that at the monastery. We definitely had some people from some seriously privileged backgrounds who are seriously miserable. And and not to say that they're like miserable people. They're great. They're wonderful, nice people, right? But deeply dissatisfied with the events and experiences of their life.
Yeah.
And they're humans are really, really good at inventing ways to be dysfunctional, right? And poor people have their own flavors of dysfunction, and middle class people have their flavors of dysfunction, and wealthy people have their flavors of dysfunction. And as far as I can tell, none's really any better than the others. They're just associated with different experiences in life.
Taking it back to the original topic for a minute, I shouldn't have to do that topic. I wanted to say it's always a good thing to be wary of the energy expenditure you're putting into. I don't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. You're going to end up doing it anyways. And I think that one that sticks out to me is anytime I have to go to the DMV. It's a time where it's like I shouldn't have to do that. I have to, because it's not so much that I shouldn't have to renew my license. That's excellent. That's definitely something I should have to do. Because you need those things, but it's I shouldn't have to wait in the A through K line and wait behind 400 people, and it should be a more expedient thing. But that doesn't, focusing on that and living in that narrative doesn't like change the fact that it's going to happen to me. And B, it wastes like important cognitive resources that I could be dedicating to something else, and you could too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's like the biggest one, right? Is that you'll get caught up in your own mind, wasting your time thinking about something that doesn't even matter because you can't change it. Like actually tonight I was thinking about how they manage the lines at Coachella, because Coachella's going on this weekend, but like the people who do the line management are the worst in the world. And every year we went, there was always horrible mistakes happening and people were being rude and there was no communication. So literally tonight I found myself thinking about how I would organize it differently. And I was thinking about it for like half an hour, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Because like it's never actually going to be a thing. Like I'm never going to have the chance to fix their line problems.
But you know what? I don't think that's a really bad expenditure, because I feel like at the very least you're working on a thought problem, right? Like
it was like puzzle solving, but like
yeah.
But still at the same time I could have been doing something more productive with my time.
Maybe
so there's the most productive thing. There's the thing that you're doing, right? But I think what Dan's actually talking about is you can actually just never even get to that stage, and
you could just be mad
all the time. Living in a story about how much the line management sucks at Coachella and how those people suck. And
I'll give you another example. I had an interaction with somebody at my restaurant a couple of weeks ago where like it got really heated. I got somebody up out of their seats, and was like, hey, like you can no longer sit here. You're gonna have to like, these people were waiting for these seats. And this guy got like crazy mad and was just like, he invented all these things about the scenario that didn't happen, that I was rude to his family and that I disrespected him in front of like, people and a bunch of different things. Right. And he was angry, and we exchanged some words that weren't like all that friendly with each other, and he ended up leaving the restaurant. But I spent like an hour and a half after that going through what the conversation should have looked like, how I would do it differently, and how that guy, like how I would have put him in his place a little more, right? So nothing that was productive for my like experience, nothing that was productive for the restaurant's experience, or like would have been like being a good role model to my coworkers or anything like that. Just pure petty bullshit. And I lived in that conversation and what that should have looked like for, like I said, like an hour and a half, and just what a waste like of resources, and that's not exactly I shouldn't have to, but it's the same kind of thing that you can get into with I shouldn't have to. You know what I mean? Where I just end up like thinking about like, I shouldn't have to do X, Y, and Z because either other people should have been responsible, or the system is rigged, or the situation's unfair, and then it's I spend a whole bunch of time thinking about that. and it's not conducive to anything good.
That's for me my ongoing struggle with dishes, right?
I have that with dishes a lot too.
Right, I shouldn't have to do these dishes. They're somebody else's dishes, right? And I just most of the time I just do the darn dishes, right? But once in a while I'm not paying attention and I get caught and I'm just like, brr, 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 or I'm doing the dishes and I'm still brr, 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 brr.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even dislike doing dishes, really. When I was at the monastery, I did dishes all day. That was just what I did, right? It's retreat season. Wake up, meditate, do dishes, eat, do dishes, so on. Go to sleep, repeat. And in that context, you either learn to enjoy doing dishes or you just go crazy, I assume.
I do reframing with dishes. I find myself in that. I used to find myself in that place a lot, especially when I lived with all my buddies, where I'd be like, I'm doing all these dishes, and I'm the only one that ever does all these dishes, which A, wasn't true, but B, halfway through being angry about that and letting it like just send me into this like spiraling dark hole, I would arrive at the conclusion of reframing it as, I'm the one who wants these dishes done right now. That's what's important to me. I value a clean kitchen right now in this moment. So it doesn't matter how these dishes got here. It's going to make me happier if they're gone.
Yeah.
We arrive at a completely different set of circumstances.
My
fucking day.
Oh, see, but me every time I go, I shouldn't have to do these dishes.
Yeah, sure. And that's how I start out too. But by the end of it, I'm like, I'm the one who wanted to do these dishes right now.
Yeah. Clearly, it wasn't important to anybody else. Otherwise, they'd have done them.
Right.
See,
right?
My problem is like, if I want to put the energy into it, I would much rather break all the dishes so they can never be dirty again. So, like, I guess I still need to figure this out because we're running into that situation right now where every dirt plate in the house is dirty and all of them are on the counter. And I didn't dirty a single one of those. I can guarantee you in that.
It's important to have that conversation, right? Like to talk about that and resolve it with your roommates.
Oh, we've had the conversation multiple times, and
I'm sure
that they'll just do them. So that's what I'm like, maybe I'll just break them all, and then they'll come home and there aren't dishes, and I'll be like, yeah, I know, I went to get a dish and there were no dishes. Because to me, them being dirty is the same as them being broken.
I have hit all the dishes before, multiple times.
Yeah, actually, that was a life that was better for us.
Yeah.
Really?
No, seriously. I don't know how we ended up with so many dishes, but we had like
people just kept on giving us
plates
dishes.
Or something like that.
So many plates. Brian and I, like especially when we lived with Michael and Matt. And so Brian and I think were the only ones really doing the dishes. And I think that we would get like 10 or 15 plates in the sink. And then finally, like, Brian was just like, you know what? If we don't have 15 plates, if we only have 4, if we only have 1 plate for every person living here, then we can't make this like massive like dish pyramid in the sink.
Yeah.
Awesome. It worked like a charm.
It is weird that we have like 16 plates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get rid of that shit immediately.
That does not need to happen.
Like, when have you guys entertained 16 people? Not never.
All right. But so let's be on task right here, right? So the key thing here is that the I shouldn't have to do this conversation prevents one from having the realization there's a solution.
Yeah.
Right? I can do this now because this matters to me, right? And that's fine. And also, all of the cognitive effort that would have gone into being miserable, I can redirect towards let's find a solution. Let's actually do something about this, right? And that's not a popular plan because if you keep doing that for long enough, you're gonna just be happy and no dice, right? Nobody wants that.
That's not why I got into this thing.
But yeah, see, for my problem is, I come home from work every day and I've probably got a good like 45 minutes to an hour. Like, I don't want to spend a portion of that every day doing dishes that are someone else's. Like it's in my whole quality of life and time I have to do things. I don't want to make a part of my day being someone else's made. And so that's that whole I shouldn't have to, I know. But I guess to me it's not that like I really want those dishes clean. It's more I'm disappointed in the fact that people don't respect the rules and things we set up together. Like, it's the George Costanza from Seinfeld. It's like, we're living in a society. There are rules.
I think, again, But channeling it back into a solution thing, it's like, well, you have to start asking the questions then, like, rather than being angry about that, like, what fixes that situation? What are the solutions?
I think having 4 dishes would be the best solution.
It's so good. It's so good. Fine.
Roommates.
Color-coded cheap plastic dishes, dude. The best thing. Everybody has a color. There's one of each. Right?
You know whose is
exactly,
whose.
You know exactly whose dish it is.
But I guess that comes back down to like whatever brain disorder I have. Like that logic sounds wonderful to me. To be like, oh, I know whose plate this is.
Yeah.
And then, right? You establish a house rule that you only take stuff into the kitchen when you're ready to clean it, and otherwise it lives in your room. Right? Like, I got a plate right here, right? Here's a plate. It's not that dirty, but I'm not ready to clean it right now, so it's not in the sink.
Yeah. Perfect.
You know? And then when it's time to clean up my room or whatnot, I grab a couple of plates, trying to keep the plate level low in here, trying to only eat in the kitchen, but we aspire. That's the aspirational hand gesture, by the way. Right? See, we're climbing the mountain. It's not like a slow motion like dolphin breaching or anything like that. That's aspiration. But when you're not angry, you can find these solutions. When you're not angry, you can figure out what it's going to take. Right? When you're sitting in the "I shouldn't have to do this" story, you're more tired, you're more miserable, and the problem doesn't get solved. So you get to have that experience again tomorrow.
Wow. And actually, it's funny. I listened to oh God, what was the podcast? It was an NPR thing. I think it was Jesus, I can't even remember, the Hidden Brain podcast. But they had an episode on the scarcity trap and how it is when like you're constantly out of time of things, you're always stressed and you can't focus. Like it makes it incredibly difficult to focus on the bigger picture and those kind of solution stuffs. And I think for me, once again, that's why that comes back down to it. When I got home and I'm like, okay, I've got like a good hour. Like if I see, I can spend 20 to 30 minutes doing something someone else was supposed to do and they didn't, then that like cuts my time in half, like da 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 da. Like, and then that's what freaks me out, I guess.
Yeah, there's a whole story that comes up about that.
Because right? Scarcity is like a very real thing.
But that story doesn't help, is the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no. Yeah. Of course it doesn't.
You train to be able to get done what needs to get done without entertaining the story, and that frees up the cognitive overhead to start finding the solutions. Right? Like I'm going to take care of this now, and tomorrow we're going to have a different experience. We're going to see what that's going to entail. Right? You don't have those resources if you're listening to "I shouldn't have to."
Yeah. Whether that needs to be like a conversation or a dish pattern or whatever.
Yeah, and actually now I just got a text message from my roommate saying, "Hey, you just saw some big cockroaches in the house." So now it's like, yeah, these are the problems that happen. So
now you got that.
Yeah, exactly. So like that problem has been compounding and now it's creating a new problem. So that's actually really good.
There are solutions, though.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. It's just gonna poison the whole house. It'll be great.
Just burn it down from space.
Yeah.
Step 1, build a rocket. Step 2, base on the moon. Step 3, giant laser.
Those are all the relevant steps. Brian's outlined it. You're fine.
No, yeah, I'm totally done with that.
We're solving the world's problems here. It's great. It's real great, guys. Thanks for participating.
You shouldn't have had to make this podcast to
right?
make all that happen, but I'm glad we
shouldn't have had to. These ideas should have just left me alone. I just stay in the mountains.
I gotta be moving on, guys. This one's been fun.
All right. Have a good night, man.
Next week, huh?
Yep. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Cheers.